Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to Learn to Read Quran. So this is now lesson number 3. Alhamdulillah, we've managed to complete our alphabet in the first lesson and we've done some revision of the alphabet in our second lesson. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at Unit 3, which is letter forms. So hopefully you've been able to have a look at the website and print out or download the PDF of this course. So this is letter forms. What that means is we're looking at what the letters look like at the beginning, middle, and end of the alphabet. Well, when the alphabet is in a word. So what we'll do is we'll start off. What color shall I choose? I think I'll choose green. Okay. So we're going to have a look and see how the letters look. So here we are. We're starting with Alif because obviously that's the beginning of the alphabet. We're going to go through the alphabet. This is how the Alif looks like by itself. How does Alif look like at the beginning? It looks exactly the same. How does it look like in the middle? Well, this bit here shows you that it's joined on to a letter before it, and there's the Alif there. At the end, it looks again the same. That bit here is where it's joined on from a letter before it, and there's the Alif standing up there. Now, why is the Alif in this box, this purple box, only purple because it's my favorite color, purple box, and it's shaded? Because there are certain letters in the Arabic alphabet, when they are written, they will not join to the letter after them. So if you can see here, the Alif at the beginning has no line here to join itself to another letter because Alif will not join to the letter after it. Now, sometimes they're called naughty letters, they're called, I don't know, you could call them unkind letters or antisocial letters, maybe, whatever you want to call it, but they don't join to the letter afterwards, and that's why there's no line on that side, on the left-hand side of it, to show that it's going to join to anything else. So that's Alif. Okay, then we've got Ba. So this is Ba by itself, and we're used to seeing that. And let's have a look at Ta and Tha as well at the same time, because all of them have that same boat shape. Ba obviously has the dot below, Ta has the 2 dots on top, and Tha has the 3 dots on top. And each of them being the same shape, the same thing happens to them when they are at the beginning, middle, and end of a word. When Ba is at the beginning, you lose the rest of that letter. Yeah, you lose the rest of that shape, and all you get to keep is that beginning shape with the dot. Remember, we said that Arabic is a language of dots. You will never lose the dot. So the dot will stay in the same place as well. Otherwise, obviously, then you'd have a different letter if it moved around. So the Ba has the dot underneath, and it has the beginning part of its letter. And so that's what it looks like when it's at the beginning. In the middle, well, you have this just a little bit of a shape just to keep the space for the Ba, and then you have the dot below, which tells you this is a Ba. And at the end, you'll find that because there's space, you can bring back the majority of the shape of the letter, and you have the dot below as well, and that shows you there's a Ba at the end. And you can see this happens for Ta, yeah, at the beginning, middle, and end, same thing happens. For Tha, beginning, middle, and end, the same thing happens. Okay, let's move on. So let's have a look at the letter Jim here. So Jim has the dot in the middle when it's by itself. This is by itself. But then when it's at the beginning, that long sweep here, that has to get cut off because you then need to join up to something afterwards. I like doing little scribbles, so yes, but I think it's unnecessary. I'll take it off. So that was just me showing you then obviously it's going to join on to another letter. But the dot that was inside that big curl of the Jim, when you take off the curl, it actually now looks like it's underneath, doesn't it? It looks like it's underneath the head of the Jim. There's the Jim how it would have been. You take off that sweeping bit and you get left with a dot effectively underneath the head of the letter. And that's what happens to this shape of letter. When it's in the middle here, in the middle, you have a line that will join it to the previous letter, and then the head of the letter stays and the dot. And at the end, there's more space at the end of a word, so you bring back the full sweep of the curl of the Jim, and the Jim looks very much how it would in its normal, self by itself. It looks in that form. Then ha and ha and ha, because they are the same shape, pretty much the same thing is going to happen here in the fact that the ha, the big open ha mouth, you take off the bottom half and you get left with just the top head of the ha at the beginning, in the middle, and then at the end you bring back the full shape. And the same thing happens here for the ha. At the beginning you keep the head with the dot at the top where it should be, and then in the middle and at the end. So that's jim, ha, and kha. And because they are all of the same shape, they will look very similar, beginning, middle, and end of the word, just as they do because they look similar by themselves as well, except the position of the dots is what you need to watch out for. Then you have these next four letters, which are in my purple boxes shaded in, so you can tell that these are going to be letters that will not join up to a letter that comes after itself. So here we go. We've got dal and dhal. We'll take those two together because dal and dhal are similar in shape. So what happens to them? Well, at the beginning of a word, they're not going to change because they won't join up to the letter after itself. So it actually just looks like it will be the letter by itself. But in the middle, what happens to these two letters? Well, they sort of straighten up a little bit, kind of bit of a backbone to them. And obviously then there's the bit here that will show that it has joined up to the previous letter. So I'll just move that so you can see it clearly. Then at the end, again, it looks very much the same as well as it did in the middle as well. So that's dal and dhal. Okay. Then you've got these next two, ra and za. They're the same shape, and you can see they're in that purple box, which means they're not going to join up to the letter afterwards, which means at the beginning of the word, they will actually just look identical to the letter by itself because it hasn't joined up to anything. In the middle and at the end, these letters actually don't really look that dissimilar to what they look like at the beginning of the word. They just have the line that shows that they've joined on to something from before. Okay. Then we've got seen and sheen, and again they're the same shape, so what happens to the shape of this letter at the beginning, middle, and end will be the same as well. Seen, well, you can't have a big curl. You can't have a big curl and then join up to a letter, so that curl comes off, and you have just the head of the letter, and from that you can recognize this is a seen at the beginning, there's the seen in the middle, and seen at the end. The same thing will happen for the sheen. You'll take off that curl and you'll get left with just the head of the letter with the three dots to show its sheen, beginning, middle, and end. Right, let's move on. Then we're moving to sad and dad. Again, two letters that have the same shape as each other. Obviously, the only variant is that the dad has a dot and the sad does not. But what happens is, again, you'll see this is a theme. You take off the curl of the letter and you just get left with the head of the letter, and that helps you to identify what the letter is. So sad at the beginning, sad in the middle, sad at the end, dad at the beginning, dad in the middle, and dad at the end. Then we've got these two letters, ba and va. Okay, so these letters actually, not too much happens to them. You can still actually see the basic shape of the letter quite clearly, beginning, middle, and end. I think those are quite easy to spot because what we're doing is we're looking at the form of the letter when the letter will be at the beginning of a word, the middle of the word, at the end of the word, because we're obviously going to be looking at joined up words, just you would in any language. You don't see letters written separately the whole time. They will be joined up into words. Then we've got the letter Ein and the letter Rein. So you can see those are both similar in shape. So let's see what happens to them. You do have to keep your eye on these because they don't do perhaps what you would expect. At the beginning, it's all good. because you can see that that curly line has gone, and we're used to the fact that these big curls are going now when we have to join up. So at the beginning, all you get left with is the head of the letter, and obviously the Rein will keep its dot. That's how you know what letter it is. Now look at what happens in the middle. It really doesn't follow form here, does it? So you can see it's completely changed shape, and at the end, that shape of how it looked in the middle has carried on, even at the end, although you do get this big curl back again. So you do have to keep your eye on that. This is, there will be some letters in the Arabic alphabet that when they do change a little bit more drastically than you would expect at the beginning or the middle or the end, those are the ones really to keep your eye on. Those are the ones to really make sure that you know what you're looking at, and basically to learn them. I mean, there is no other way around it. So we'll carry on. We've got fur here with its long foot, and that, yes, it will come off. You have to cut that off because at the beginning it will just have its head with the dot. In the middle, pretty much it does keep its shape, although not perhaps exactly, but you can still, it's still a circle with a dot. And at the end, that long foot comes back again. Okay, moving on, we've got off. So here it is, we're going to take off that curly bit. We get left with the head when we want to then join it up to another word, to another letter. So this is at the beginning, this is in the middle, and this is at the end. Then we've got kaf. Now kaf, you again, is another one you're going to have to learn and learn how the different forms will look, whether it be beginning, middle, or end. This is kaf as we're used to seeing it, just in its full form. At the beginning, almost like this middle bit goes, or you could even, I mean, what some of my students have said, well, actually, they like to think that it's the little thing in the middle that's opening up and becomes this shape here. Either way, you're just really going to have to learn it. And then in the middle, it sort of almost like squishes down as if it has something heavy sat on top of it. But like I say, yeah, a little bit different, isn't it? You're going to have to keep your eye on that one. At the end, Alhamdulillah, we come back and we do look a bit more like the kaf that we're used to seeing. So then we've got lamb. Lamb with its long back and then a curl here. Okay, the curl's going to come off, but lamb will then join on to something else. Yeah? So this is where you need to keep your eye on whether something is an elif or a lam. Elif will not join to something else, lam will. In the middle also, lam will join to something from before it, and it will quite happily join to something after it, whereas Alif will not do that. So this is, I'm pointing out to you the ones that majority of the time people do confuse, so that you can be pre-warned and pre-armed, and you can make that clear in your mind as to what you're looking at. At the end, lam, alhamdulillah, looks very much how we're used to seeing it. So we're on the last page. Here we go. We've got meme. This is what meme looks like by itself. Look what happens to it at the beginning. Yes, we know we're going to take off that tail. That has to come off, doesn't it? But even the head sort of just changes shape just that little bit. So yeah, so keep your eye on that. In the middle, that same sort of shape either side, you've got joins where it will join on to a letter from before it and a letter after it. And at the end, the meme looks very much like how it will look by itself. Noon. This is another one that people do get a bit confused with, because at the beginning, just like that, you could almost confuse it with the letter zal, but this will join to another letter, whereas zal will not. So you must make sure that you get those two straight in your mind. In the middle, the noon is just sort of hovering there above just something to keep a space for the dot so that it can be seen as a noon. And at the end, it comes back to looking very much how you would recognize it. This, I think, is another one that you really need to keep your eye on. This is the ha, this deep ha. Look at what it looks like in the beginning. I mean, literally, it looks like a double circle, doesn't it? It looks like a double circle here. And that double circle almost opens up and almost looks like the figure 8 in the middle. And at the end, again, it looks different as well. So I think this, you have to keep your eyes on this one. Really, you definitely do. Wow. This is the last one. No, I wasn't just saying wow. This is the letter wow. Um, this letter here is in my lovely purple box, which means this letter will not join up to anything that comes after it. So which means actually that it keeps its shape all the way through. And really, I haven't ever had a student that will confuse this letter. Then you've got the letter ya. Now this is interesting. Ya in its full form, when it's by itself, yes, by itself, ya has no dots. Everyone see that? It has no dots. It's just a shape. But at the beginning of a word, two dots suddenly appear underneath. And it is the only letter in the Arabic alphabet that has two dots underneath. No other letter has this. And in the middle, those dots are there. But at the end, those dots disappear. So it's almost as if the dots are only there to show you that you have a ya beginning and middle, because without those dots you wouldn't recognize it. So that's one to look at as well. Yes, let's put an arrow by that. That's one to look at too. The letter Hamza. Remember the letter Hamza? We said we were just going to look at it. We were going to call it a Hamza. We weren't going to do anything with it. One thing I want you to know, and this is why I've got this in this box here, is the letter Hamza, small but very needy, loves to be carried. Here it carries on a alif, here it carries on a wow, and here it is carried on a ya. So here you can see the hamza on the alif, the hamza on the wow, the hamza on the ya. So just as a heads up, we know you'll see this when we go into the further lessons. When you have the letter hamza, it's actually the hamza that gets pronounced. This poor old alif here, this poor old wow here, poor old ya here, doesn't actually get pronounced at all. It's just they're acting as like a chair for the letter Hamza. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we finish our Arabic forms of letters, beginning, middle, and end. Please do look through this video a few times because you will need to get some of these letters straight in your head before you move on.